Forgot to press the button. It's one of those nights. Welcome to Leicester Fan TV. My name's Phil. If you love Leicester, like we all do, we want your views and your comments. We can't do the show without your comments. So as ever, we want to know what you think about Leicester City. We're in the middle of an international break. Love them or hate those. I think most of us just want to get on with Crystal Palace on Saturday. So that's what we'll talk about. I'm going to get Simon on, and we are also going to talk about the next 3 or 4 or 5 games before the next international break. How many points do we need to get? What sort of start have we had? I'm really interested to know what you think, what Simon thinks, because I've been having quite a lot of arguments with there's been a reasonable amount of fans who are like, it's not good enough, get rid of Cooper. And I'm like, blimey, 3 games in, you're having a laugh, aren't you? Anyway, we want your views. What do you think? Let us know. Join us for the next 30 minutes, Leicester Fan TV.
The Leicester City machine is on the march again.
Leicester Fan TV presents a variety of content like fan discussions, match analysis, and engaging with Leicester fans worldwide. We want your views live, thanks to our sponsors, Everard's, Pucker Pies, Hologram, Take Me, Newbie & Co, and the Fox's Arms. For exclusive extra shows, behind the scenes, competitions and podcasts, subscribe to Leicester Fan TV today on Patreon.
Don't forget you can follow us at Leicester Fan TV on whatever social media platform you want to follow us on. And this is all about getting your comments on screen. So Craig, good evening to you. Welcome to the show. Let me know your views and comments. Richie, thanks for watching as ever. He says, good evening, Leicester City forever. Andy says, good evening. John says, good evening. Can't wait to get going again. John, you used to live down near Crystal Palace. I don't think you do anymore, do you now? You've moved. So this would have been your home away game, if that makes any sense. Maz says, good evening. As ever, we want your comments. Richie says, get behind Steve Cooper. Do you know what, Richie? That's what I feel like at the moment. I've seen, on Leicester Fan TV, I've seen some of the other guys who are allowed their opinions. Of course, they are. You're allowed your opinions. I just think 3 games in, really, we're like debating whether Steve Cooper should be the bloke or not. I think you've just got to get on with it. Enjoy it. Dawn says, hi, nice to watch live as I'm normally at work on a Monday night. Well, thank you, Dawn. Let me know your comments. Get them in live tonight. That is exactly what we want, just like Dorco's done. He says we can relax a bit now and the players will show it. Let's hope so, Dorco. I hope that it does start to come together. Bubba's out in the States. Good evening, Bubba. Said, let's give the lad a bit with the full squad. I think you mean a bit of time with the full squad. These next 2 fixtures will tell the tale. Minimum of 4 points. The next 2 fixtures, of course, is Crystal Palace away and Everton at home. And then we've got Walsall in the cup, but then we're away at Arsenal, and we are then got Bournemouth at home. They're the interesting ones. The next England game after tomorrow's game is England v Greece on the 10th of October, according to my records. So we've got Palace away, Everton at home, Arsenal at home, and Bournemouth at home. Well, I think that's going to be an interesting one. We want to sort of know how many points you think you'll get in the next 4. Andy says, I think we need to judge Cooper on the next 6 to 10 games, and then we can see what direction we're going. I would agree with you. Let's get behind Cooper, says Ivan, and the team. I know 3 matches. I have genuinely heard and seen people in comments say, that's it, Cooper out. And I'm like, crikey, I know I've said some stupid things before, but here's somebody. Reedy says, I'm not saying I want him gone. I want him to do well. I just don't think the style of football that he's playing by staying in the game will keep us up. The next 7 games, we really need to get 10 points. Give him a chance, Reedy. Give him a little bit of a chance in there. I'm going to get Simon in very, very shortly. John Tower says, I'm still CP, Phil. Still working on the move. Oh, you're still down in Crystal Palace. I wonder what you meant there, John. You're still CP. We'll get 8 points in the next few games. Yeah, well, how many games, Craig? You've got to be a bit more specific in there. Dawn says we need and should win 3 out of the next 5. I find that interesting. David says second half team against Villa needs to be the starting 11. And I probably would agree, Dave. We were a bit too defensive. Let's get Simon in. because the reason I love getting Simon in, welcome to the show, Simon, is I
Cheers,
like
Phil.
to think of you, Simon, as well. I do like to think of you, Simon, but apart from that, I also like to think that you're the voice of reason. You're quite balanced. You're normally got good logical argument, and I like to hear what it is. So, firstly, welcome to the show, Simon.
Nice to see you, Phil. How are you?
Good to get you on. I'm doing well, but I have been frustrated with fans after 3 games, Simon, saying, going down the lines that Cooper can't do it, to the extent of, I think Cooper should go. It's not been an outstanding start in my books, but I have thought we've competed in all 3 games, Simon. Come on. I like to hear your honest take on the first 3 games, first of all.
I think he could have been a bit more aggressive at times, if I'm being honest. I thought we were a little bit too pensive against Aston Villa, especially in the first half, as you alluded to just now. I thought, we're at home. Okay, Villa finished top 4. I get all that argument last season, but when you're at home, that's what really it should be all about, trying to get your points at home. And I felt like we could have been a bit more aggressive. Cooper made like a lot of the fans did, quite a bit of a vocal opinion during pre-season of the need to get some attacking midfield threat into the squad, which, to the club's credit, they managed to get some players in. However, we didn't select them for the starting 11 against Aston Villa. So I think that's where some of the frustration comes from. Is that when you saw the team selected an hour before the game, you're kind of looking at it thinking, well, I'm not sure where the creativity is coming from in that starting 11.
I did hear on that, Simon, and again, it's going what I heard that, and again, forgive me on the pronunciation because I'm not great on this, but El Canute, the lad we signed late on Thursday night, he's been in Leicester for 24 hours. It's a lot to expect somebody like him to actually start. And I did hear the other lad we signed from Brighton, Benute. Am I saying that right?
Buenanotte, I think.
Buenanotte. Yeah. Again, I hear he had a slight knock and they didn't fancy him to start because of the slight injury. So, there's often little reasons why Ndidi ends up playing a bit further forward. And again, Enzo did play in there quite a bit last year. So,
yeah.
Carry on.
I mean, Phil, there are those that were against Cooper being our manager when he was appointed. So they're not going to go into the season full of the flushes of enthusiasm because they don't agree with the appointment. As Leicester fans, we've got to get behind the manager and behind the team. I absolutely agree with that. But I think, as you alluded to just now, these next 5-6 games, albeit with the Arsenal game being, a bonus game in there, we've got to start showing that we can compete with the teams that are going to be in the bottom 6-8 of the league.
Yeah, that's what John Tower says here. Not a great start, but we have seen that we can compete. We need to have a bit of a go in there. Andy says, need to play Cody and Okole against Palace. I actually thought Okole had a more than decent game against Villa in there. Michael, out there in the States, good evening, Michael, says, we all knew this season was going to be. I'm just really glad to be back in the division in there. Imran says, I have to totally agree. Only 3 games in and personally feel that we are not playing that badly. Yes, the 3 DMs against Villa annoyed me. However, I feel Cooper will get it right. Again, there may have been sort of reasons for that 3 DMs because it did seem too defensive. But Cooper is still working out some of that team. It's been quite a big transition, Simon, over the summer. And I'm not making excuses, but there has been 5 or 6 established players gone, and 5 or 6, 7 new players in, a new manager. It takes a little while. You have to manage people at work, Simon. You have to work with lots of people. Sometimes these things, they don't instantly gel, do they? It can take a bit of working together.
Yeah. I think there's 2 things to say there for me. The first thing is that it's a reset, I suppose, of all of our expectations as fans. We're not the team we were the season before we got relegated that was pushing for a top 6 finish. I mean, we all know about the way the club was wired up financially for that kind of top 6 European football finish, and there's no point now talking over the spilt milk of how that all unravelled. So I think there's a bit of reset for us as fans to understand the expectations on the squad and the manager and the club, and I also think that in the middle of all of that, there's the completely unexpected curveball of Maresca exiting, having committed himself to the club at the end of the season. So the club's had to go through quite a rapid regeneration of itself, and it needs time. It does need time, but at the same time as that, I'm sure you'd agree with me, Phil, that we have to do everything we possibly can this season to retain Premier League status, because the thoughts of heading back to the Championship again, I would imagine if that does happen, we'll end up down there for a lot longer than we did the last season. So the stakes are high, and I can see all opinions, but yeah, it's too early, in my opinion, to be calling for a change of manager. The man needs a chance.
John Towers says here, would you start Edouard and Ayew versus Palace? I'd start Edouard. He can't play, John. He can't play. We've signed him, but he can't play against Palace. That's in his signing on thing, which was quite cute of them, but it makes sense. So Ayew, by the way, this is one of the little debates I've had following the Villa game, is I understand why Ayew was playing there. Actually, in that first half in particular, he was kicking towards me in the family stand. And he was clearly, I think, told number one role was to mark their players and be defensive. I didn't count the times he was tracking back and putting in some good tackles, but it certainly felt like he put quite a few in. And I get it that when Mavididi came on in the second half with 20 to go and we were chucking the kitchen sink at it, there was a difference for that. And I sometimes think, Simon, like you said about fans' expectations, I think Cooper is trying to look at some of these other teams and go, if we go player for player, Mavridi's never played in the Premier League. He is still an unknown in there. I think Cooper is looking at this and maybe is playing a bit of like the tactics guy and trying to work. You've got to give some respect now, the position we're in. We're not Leicester of 4 years ago, 6th in the table. We're a newly promoted side.
Yeah, with a much weaker squad than 3-4 years ago. We have to get our heads around that. I suppose the argument from the Villa game is a football philosophy one. You could argue that Kuba's tactics were to make sure we were in the game with half an hour to go, and then throw on some more attacking players and look for opportunity. The other side of the coin is, by the time we did that, we were 2 goals down, and the chances of us then generating at least 2 goals in the last 20 to 30 minutes are minimal. So there's 2 balances. There's two schools of thought there, I suppose, and it's which camp you're in. Personally, my camp, I'd rather see us go for it from minute one and have a go, especially against the better sides in the league, because as we just alluded to, we're not really expected to compete at that level this season.
But yes, I know, and I hear what you're saying. Somebody put in there, I think it was Imran, I'm just going to find. Imran says here, there seems to be a bit more excitement around the ground too. The atmosphere seems to have returned. I would agree with that instantly, that there was more atmosphere at the King Power and it was more exciting. I understand what you're saying, Simon, but again, in this Premier League, these sides, this is not QPR and Rotherham and Bristol City. If you go a little bit too gung-ho against a team like Aston Villa or Liverpool or Man United or Spurs, either home or away, you could be like Ipswich have had. You could be 2 or 3 down within the first 20 minutes. And then people will straight away be like, what is Cooper doing trying to outplay, one of the best sides in Europe?
I'm not sure it's outplay. I think for me it's compete.
We did compete, didn't we, against Villa?
I
know we went 2 down, but we were competing, weren't we?
We spent quite a bit of the game on the back foot for me. They had a lot. They when you took a look, talking about goal scoring opportunities, until we switched the dynamic of the game tactically by making those subs, a lot of the pressure and onus was on us to keep them out of opportunities to score. It wasn't an ebb and flow game where it was back and forth and there were opportunities for both sides. It was largely Villa that were dominant until we made the change. And whilst I completely respect your opinion on it, I'd rather see us build a blend on the pitch which allows us to create opportunities during the whole game and not just look to select a section of the game to have a go, if you catch my drift.
He'll do that, Simon, I think, because of these 2 more attacking midfielders we've signed, who both in their own rights look quite exciting. The lad from Brighton obviously comes with credentials of playing 27 games last season, got good Premier League experience, and a lot of talk about El Kanouté. I'm going to keep getting his name wrong, but that a lot of people saying this is one of the fresh young talents around Europe.
Then great. I mean, he's an unknown quantity to the Premier League, as you've alluded to with Mavididi, etc. These guys have got to step up to the plate. Another thing that's been on my mind, Phil, and I want to ask you something if you don't mind, is about Ricardo. I don't know if you were going to bring that up tonight, but why, in your opinion, is he not getting selected for the first team?
I think. Again, I'm no expert on it. I feel it's because Cooper. I think he's playing a little bit of money ball, a bit of stats ball, and I think he's looking at Christensen and James Justin as the fullbacks and going, these offer me. Like I say about Ayew, they're gonna. If I've got attack and defence as two options, and if you've got to weight them slightly, I think he's adding a little bit more weight to the defensive situation, and I think he looks at James Justin as a bit, in my books, is a bit more of a traditional fullback, as is Christensen, and I think he's obviously the great thing about a new manager in some ways, Simon, is everybody's on a fresh start. He'll look at James Justin and go, well, this guy was an England fullback 3 years ago on the fringes of England. So when I watched him in training, I look at all last year's games, but Ricardo Pereira wasn't really playing fullback. So if I want somebody a bit more traditional, that's what I think, Simon. Well, I know a lot of fans will go, I'll get Ricardo bombing on down and do that. He's better. Is that your take on it? You think Ricardo should be in there? I think he will be in there for some of the matches.
I mean, when you look at it, he's played a multitude of games in the Premier League. He's played for Portugal. He's a very experienced, good quality fullback. And yeah, you're right. He did play that inverted role for Maresca last year, which meant he was kind of midfield and a bit defence and a bit here and a bit there. And I thought he did an excellent job of it last season. It's a mystery to me because he's quite, to my perception, he's quite happy to see Christensen flying high up that left wing a lot. He seems to want to balance that with a more kind of stay at home on the right hand side. I'm sure Ricardo would do that job for him if he asked him to. I don't know. It just seems to me personally, it seems like a bit of an odd one because I think as a personality, I think Ricardo's a very stable professional guy. I can't really figure out why he's not getting a sniff. If I'm honest, my opinion.
Yeah, indeed. Richie says get behind Ricardo, Simon. Simon is 100% behind Ricardo, Richie. He is exactly explaining why he thinks he should be in there. Nick says here, it's quite a big one, trying to be competitive from the start against the top six side of last season. You're not going to be creating that many chances and just holding your own. Stay in the game for the first 30 and then you maybe tweak the game plan to be more attacking minded. Nick, that's what I think Cooper is trying. And I think he's trying not... The hardest thing would be to take a few big pastings early on in the season because that doesn't do anybody any good at all. And I want to just move that on slightly, Simon, to your views. And again, I've had some, I'll call them a debate, but I find it that fans, in my mind, some fans have got to work out that we are a freshly promoted side. And I'm all for giving it a go, but I spoke to a couple and I said, well, Crystal Palace away, it's going to be tough. And they were like, that's 3 points. I went, well, yeah, 4 years ago, I'd have said Crystal Palace away, I really fancy 3 points there. Crystal Palace got promoted in 2013-14, the same year we did, and they've stuck in the Premier League. They've not won it. They're a well-established mid-table side. And I could argue, Simon, they've signed a couple of players, and a couple of their old players who they don't fancy anymore, rejects, if you want, have come to us. Because they don't think Edouard's good enough. They don't think Ayew's good enough. And they're around our starting team. So I'm amazed slightly that fans are going, well, if Cooper doesn't get 3 points at Palace, and I'm like, I hope we get 3 points. But actually, in this season, a draw is another good point. And I just this thing with expectations, Simon. What's your take? And I don't mind if you say, no, that's got to be 3 points.
No, I'm not going to say that. I don't. I agree with you. I think there's a reset of expectation this year. There's almost maybe something feel a little bit generational in that as well. In terms of, you and I are old enough to remember some quite dim and dark times where things were a lot bleaker than they are at the minute. And there's a perspective issue maybe a little bit in there as well. You look at the last 10 years. There's a whole world of of success and glory and good league positions in and amongst all of that. So maybe there's a little bit of a reset for the younger generation as well to understand we're not quite that team that won the league and won the FA Cup and all of those wonderful things that we did over the last 10 years. But yeah, you're right in what you say. I agree with you that, you know, a Palace is a good, solid, established Premier League side, and we're away, and that's not going to be an easy place to go and get 3 points. And if we do, it will be a very good result.
Simon, come on then, you and me. Let's hear. I want you not score predictions, just point predictions over the next 4 games to the next international break. And everybody who's watching this, please put in for the next 4 games, and I'll just recap what they are. So Simon's got time to think. It's Crystal Palace away. Then it's Everton at home, which is just, we know that probably sets the scene for the season. Then it's Arsenal away. Listen, I think in the Premier League winning title season, we didn't win away at Arsenal. And then we've got Bournemouth at home, Simon. So 2 away games, 2 home games. What's a really nice, realistic number? I want everybody in the comments to put in how many you think out of those 4 games is really good and sensible, but that actually would all go, yeah, that's decent. And it's not an easy answer, I don't think, Simon. Talk us through the 4 one by one.
Cooper's had a bit of time with the players, international break. I know some of the players have been away. He's had a chance to bed in some of the more recent signings, as you alluded to, the Moroccan lad, and I know Edouard unfortunately he can't play because it's his parent club, so that one's out the window. So I guess we'll see Vardy again on the weekend. I'd take a decent performance and a draw at Palace on Saturday. I think that would be a solid result. I'd like to see a win, obviously, but I think a draw is not a disaster against a team that seemed to be making progress last year and as you said, have made some good signings. I think Nketiah is at Palace now, amongst others who we were trying to sign in the summer. So it's by no means an easy game. So I'd take a point. From the Arsenal game, that's anything goes. Don't get hammered. I think probably is the right way to look at that.
We never get anything there, Simon, do we? We very, very rarely over the last 20, 30 years
come away with this with some dignity and respect, and I think that's probably fair enough. The Everton game that comes before that is absolutely a win for me. I think that, as you just alluded to, very much sets the tone of expectation. If we play at home to Everton and get beat, then your Monday night show will look very different to this one. I'm sure it will be all crisis point and red lights flashing all over. But yeah, I think that's a win. So 4 points from those 2 games. Is that
predictable, is it, Simon? Is that predictable? If we lose,
if we lose to Everton at home, then I might politely decline your invitation to come on the show after that one, because that's going to be ugly. And then the last one you mentioned, Bournemouth again away. They've had some decent seasons, but they've faded a little bit over the last couple of seasons. Not quite. They've sold their best player, obviously, to Spurs over the summer. So I'll take a point. So 5 points for me.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting. I've been putting some on screen. Osrin says here, Palace 1, Everton 3 points, Arsenal 0, Bournemouth 3. That's 6. That's 7. He says happy with 1. I think if we were to get 7 points out of those 4, I would be absolutely doing cartwheels, if I'm honest. If I am genuinely honest. Bubba says 6. Scott says 5, but could be getting 7. Craig saying 7 points in the next 4. Ben says 5. Terry says 6. Both. I understand what Terry's saying there. That the 2 games at home in particular. I think the home fixtures, again, if Steve Cooper, and it is massive ifs, but if Steve Cooper's to repeat what he did with Forest that first season, was he got the City ground rocking. He got all the home fans believing, and the City ground was a fortress. And I think that in my books, that's what has to happen at the King Power. And I've seen signs of it, because again, against Villa, that last 20 minutes, everybody was on their feet and shouting and screaming at the ref and, getting players forward. And we nearly pulled it off. We nearly got the draw. And we certainly, against Spurs, it was similar. And we did get the draw. The Everton game, Simon, they don't look good at all, do they? And I know, again, it's only 3 points in. I'd be far more worried being an Everton fan at the moment than a Leicester fan, if I'm honest. because they've been teetering around a drop for many years now. Like you say, I think that it sets the scene. If we were to lose, I think it's a big, deep breath time. I think a draw and you go, we needed a win. It already feels like a critical game, that one, and it's not the next game, it's a couple away, but
I think it's setting the tone, Phil, isn't it, for the season in terms of a litmus test. You know, we haven't been tried yet against teams that are likely to be around us at the end of the season in that bottom 4 or 5 teams. So, you know, if we go out against Everton and have a shocker and get beat, then yeah, the red flags will be going up everywhere in terms of this season's fortunes. And I'm sure Cooper will know that. I mean, it's on the other side of that, from what you just alluded to, the atmosphere improving in the ground. I mean, that is one big positive out of this season for me in terms of, you know, last season, whilst we won the championship, I certainly wouldn't say that the atmosphere in our stadium was electric. I mean, I think that probably alluded to the style of football we were playing a lot of the time last season. Sorry, Phil, where, you know, it wasn't that exciting or engaging or electric to watch, and people were sat there in the stands at times frustrated by the way we were playing. So, you know, if a bonus from this season is that we all get on board and engaged at the King Power Stadium, then that's got to be a good thing.
I'm sure really just puts these things into delight me. 10 points from the next 6. Oh, he's talking about the next 6 games. I mean, the next 2 games after those 4 does go. I mean, crikey. I mean, after we've played Bournemouth at home, we then play away at Southampton. We play at home against Forest, and we play Ipswich at home. I mean, the next 3 after the next international break. Again, it just this is probably it's quite early in the season, Simon, but probably by the end of that game, which is the last one of that series, which is Ipswich Town on November the 2nd, we probably will have a fair idea of if we're in with half a chance.
I think we'll have, by the end of October, I think we'll have a very good idea of what we're faced with, and all of the should he, shouldn't he, will he, won't he, and all of this stuff will all sort itself out, because ultimately, if we manage to pick up some points against the teams that we imagine will be in and around us, I would imagine it will put the fire out of this whole Cooper scenario that seems to be rumbling on at the minute.
I don't want to come back to it too much, Simon, but it does feel a bit. I am still a bit gobsmacked that there are fans talking about a manager, you know, shouldn't be there at this stage of the season, or do you feel that's just the pace of football nowadays with I mean, we don't help probably social media and the debate. Do you feel it rumbles too quickly?
Everything in life, not just football, rumbles too quickly these days, Phil, does it not? Everything's instant now. Results, expectation. That's modern day life. We're old enough to remember a time that was a little bit more sedate, me and you, mate. But yeah, it's the way of the world. As I said before, I think there's those that went into the season that didn't fancy him from minute one. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't fancy him. I'm not going to lie to you. You know that.
No, that's
Phil.
fair enough. I know that.
You know, I didn't, but I'm not going to hang him after 3 games. So I'm going to give him until at least November to demonstrate that he can do the job. And if he can do the job, I'll quite happily eat my words, shut my mouth, and respect him for it.
I mean, again, that's been part of the debate. I was like, look, Cooper wasn't top of my pops for picks and all that, but you know, there wasn't a massive line of people wanting the role. We got turned down by a few, and you know, you've probably got this or the West Brom guy, but that didn't seem to either happen either. So,
I've got a question for you on that actually. While we're here, I mean, I'm sure you've been discussing the whole points deduction and not as it's turned out, thank the Lord, lately. But I'll ask you a question: if that had been sorted out in June or May, would we have the same manager and would we have the same squad?
No, possibly it would have been all different. And I would actually think, Simon, I've got no inside knowledge on this, but I would assume the club would even consider that, knowing that they probably told the Premier League back in May that they felt Leicester City had a case, because they've been arguing all that time. So I assume they've been saying they've got a case. I would think Leicester City, the club, potentially highly frustrated at the Premier League for effectively I don't know what you call it. Like, it's not political espionage or whatever it is. It's almost like business shenanigans that scupper. If somebody went round about my business saying, by the way, they're rubbish, they owe people money, they're going under, whatever, then nobody's going to come and use me. It's so the Premier League certainly haven't helped us, and things might have been very different. I'm sure there was players looked at Leicester City in the transfer window, Simon. You must think this, that went, they're going to get 10 points. Everybody's saying 10-point deduction, 15 points. Why would it go there? There must be players thinking that.
I think we missed out on a few players, absolutely, because of it. I think we were seen as doomed.
Yeah, Reedy says Potter would have joined if we knew the point deduction wasn't happening. You don't know that, Reedy, but he could be right, couldn't he?
Although there's that whole Rudkin business in that I've read about many times that apparently was a stumbling block with that, but it's rumour. Yeah.
It's all sorts. Simon, listen, we're just about to overrun. I think it's great. It's full of intrigue what goes on at Leicester City. I just feel like let's focus on the pitch, and I can't wait. I really can't. And I always would love Leicester to win. I would love Leicester to win at Palace, because then I am having and inviting Reedy and Locks onto this show next Monday, because then they can come and explain it, because they'll probably flip-flop Simon the other way and go, I told you Cooper was good. Youth of today, Simon. What we should retitle this: Moany Old Middle-Aged Men.
Let's hope we got nothing to moan about after the next two games.
Indeed. Simon, listen, as ever, the voice of reason. Thank you so much for coming on tonight.
Thanks, mate. Take care of yourself.
All right. We'll see you soon. Thanks to Simon for joining us. As ever, he has a good balanced view. Like everything, we don't agree. You can tell. You don't agree with me. I don't agree with you. We'll all have a laugh about it. We'll see. The best thing is to watch what happens on the... There's Reader. Yeah, you coming on next Monday, mate, if we beat Palace. Trust me. We don't always agree, but we'll get people's views on. And we'll see. That's what we love, is the debate. Leicester Fan TV is all about the debate. Bubba says here, I'll come on the show under that title. Thanks, Bubba. Bubba, it'd be great to get you on any week. And I say that for anybody. We're always open for people to coming on. Ian says it's all aboard for Leicester. It is. It's the roller coaster. Ian, you've been on it. I've been on it a long time in there. Reedy says, if we win. I hope we do. Richie says he doesn't agree with Simon. That's fine. I don't all the time either, Richie. But we can have a debate about it. Andy wants to start a whole another debate. Andy, we haven't got 4 hours to go through that now. We'll perhaps do it another day. Why did the Palace get kicked out? Don't know, says. I don't know, Councillor. I don't really know what you're on about there. I'm not absolutely sure you're right with that, Mark. Older fans are wiser. Not necessarily. We have been there, seen and done it. We're probably more cynical. I would go for that one. Anyway, in there. Are we going to beat Palace? Really? Mark, it's Leicester. Who knows? We'll probably beat Palace, lose to Everton, beat Arsenal away, lose to Forest, beat Man U. Come on. We all know what could happen in there, isn't it? Listen, thanks so much for joining me, and thanks for all your views and comments. If you can, go and like, share, follow at Leicester Fan TV. We love having you all here. It's been great to get your views in. I'm live next Monday when Leicester beat Palace. I can't wait. Locks is live on Thursday. Go and have a chat with him on Thursday. Convince him that actually we've got half a chance. I'll see you later.
The Leicester City machine is on the march again.
Leicester Fan TV presents a variety of content like fan discussions, match analysis, and engaging with Leicester fans worldwide. We want your views live, thanks to our sponsors, Everard's, Pucker Pies, Hologram, Take Me, Newbie & Co, and the Fox's Arms. For exclusive extra shows, behind the scenes, competitions and podcasts, subscribe to Leicester Fan TV today on Patreon.